Welcome to Oops, I'm Evolving. I'm Morgan, and this is the podcast where we take those big, mind-blowing spiritual concepts and break them down into the real life shit you can actually use. Because let's be honest, real growth doesn't happen in the highlight reel. It happens in the shadows, in the messy, uncomfortable WTF moments. So let's talk about it, air it all out, and level up. Hey, today we are doing an episode that is truly near and dear to my heart because it's a lot of what I've been going through, honestly, for a while. It will come in, rear its ugly head, and then pull back. So let's talk about one of the most gut-wrenching, under-discussed parts of healing and growth. This is when your relationships that once felt like home, those best friends, that family dynamic, whatever relationship we're talking about, it once felt like home, felt really comfortable, felt really safe. And now all of a sudden, it started to feel a little bit like a cage. It started to feel a little bit suffocating. When the conversations that you used to have a lot of fun with and you used to really enjoy, now all of a sudden they feel super empty. And it almost feels like you just can't get through them. Or when you start shrinking in rooms that you've already outgrown because you don't want to come off weird or you don't want to cause a riff or whatever it may be. You're just trying to keep the peace. So you're just kind of reverting back into your old shell every time you're around specific people. And you find yourself asking, why does this feel so lonely? Why does becoming myself mean that I need to lose the people that I love? And am I the problem here? I seem to be the only common denominator, but what is happening? And if you've ever felt any of those things, this is your episode. The truth that nobody wants to say out loud is that you're going to outgrow people. If you've heard about soul contracts, the philosophy that is surrounding a soul contract is that when you are just a soul and you're signing up to come to Earth, you get around every single person that you are going to have any kind of interaction with or relationship with, and you sign a contract with them. So for instance, you maybe are signing a contract with your childhood best friend. And that childhood best friend is going to come into your life and they're going to teach you something, or you are going to teach them something. Usually it's both. Then the contract is fulfilled. So you just kind of do outgrow people throughout your life. Relationships aren't meant to necessarily be a forever thing all of the time. Sometimes we have short relationships in our life and that contract gets fulfilled quickly. And it doesn't mean that you aren't going to have forever people. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that not everyone is going to be a forever person. And it's not because you're better than them. It's not because you've done some high and mighty spiritual journey, but it's because when you're going through this healing journey, it rearranges absolutely everything, including your capacity for fake shit. So if you've already fulfilled your contract and you're just kind of hanging out there because you don't want to lose that person because that person's always been in your life, because losing them would cause you both to deal with some uncomfortable feelings, well, this is gonna be a time where things might kind of rear your ugly head. You have reduced your capacity for shallow conversations, for staying small to make other people comfortable. The thing is that you can't grow without friction. And some of that friction comes from the relationships that were built around an older version of you, around the older version of you who still people pleased, who still self-abandoned and just did whatever the crowd was doing. The people who are now emotionally unavailable, or the version of you that was addicted to chaos. The thing is that when we are waking up to the life that we built while we are asleep, we kind of have to disassemble things. And sometimes that means the relationship can grow and can stretch and can stay intact. And sometimes it means that the other person isn't quite ready to do what is necessary to be able to accept you now at what your authenticity is. Before, you were performing a version of yourself to keep the relationship, to keep the bond with that person. And now you are kind of toting that line of not performing. And what you're feeling is that this bond just doesn't fit anymore. So, what does it actually feel like when you start outgrowing people? This is such an important thing to talk about because you might not even know that what's going on is that you're outgrowing people. So, let's talk about it. When you are outgrowing people, one of the things that you will feel is you're going to start feeling like it's really heavy to be around them. Like I already said, maybe the discussions that you used to talk, the drama that you used to get into, the way you used to talk about other people, the way you're discovering that now your relationship is so shallow. Yeah, it's just going to feel like it's a lot of work to be around that person. It's going to feel really heavy. You might find yourself kind of avoiding the phone calls. It's not because you don't care, but it's just like because it's so much work to be around them now. You might leave your hangouts or your time around that person feeling emotionally hungover or weirdly ashamed or just once again, heavy is a really good word for it. You may dread the conversation where you have to either lie about where you're at or deal with their judgment because, not everybody is on this journey. And if you're on this journey, you might feel like not everybody can meet you where you're at. So that's where that like playing small and like shrinking comes from. You might feel more alone with them than you do by yourself. And it's not petty. It's that your nervous system is reacting to the dissonance. Your nervous system is saying, this isn't fitting anymore and I don't know how I fit in here. When you try to ignore it, you feel fake, you feel drained, you start playing roles again, you start laughing at shit that isn't funny, you start agreeing with opinions that don't actually resonate with you. And that's the cost of keeping the connection at the expense of your own alignment. Now, you might be wondering, okay, like I'm feeling like there's this huge weird gap here. I'm feeling like I don't really know how to be this way about this person. I know that this isn't really aligning with me anymore, but how does that other person feel? Well, let's talk about them too, because they're not the villain in the story. Sometimes they're confused, sometimes they're scared, sometimes they feel like they're losing you and they don't know how to ask you or like what to get you to stay. Sometimes your healing reflects back the parts of them that they haven't faced yet. You might just kind of be highlighting some things that they're being asked to look and heal. The same way that people reflect things back to you, the same way that you have triggers that are a highlight for you to look at and be like, okay, what's going on here? You're doing that to other people. That's what we're here for. That's part of the soul contract thing. But they have their own free will and they can decide whether or not they want to heal that. And we've all been in that place where we've been triggered and we haven't done jack shit with it. We haven't healed. We lashed out. We got mad at the other person. All of that stuff can happen. And it's just part of being human. It doesn't make that person a bad person. It doesn't mean that that person has any ill will. It doesn't mean anything really, other than that you can see that they're not going there. They're not trying to heal that. And the fact that you may reflect that back to them, like you might be becoming a hard for person for them to be around as well. They might respond to that trigger with passive aggressionness, with silence, with guilt trips. Maybe you're hearing things like you've changed, you think you're better than everyone now, you don't have time for me anymore. But what they really mean when they boil it all down is, I don't know how to love this version of you. I only know how to love the version of you that you used to be. And that's okay. That's not them being a villain. That's them being confused. They haven't done all the work that you're doing, even if they are newer in the journey. Or maybe, you know what? I have a bold take. Maybe they are doing the work that you're doing and it's just taking them down a different path. And guess what? That's also okay. It's painful. It fucking sucks. I can't tell you how many times I've cried over the last 2 years over a relationship that I thought that I had that it turns out wasn't meant to go with me. It sucks. It fucking sucks. And I just like want to honor that with you. If you have relationships that like you just know are begging for you to let them go, but you don't really know how. Maybe that you love that person dearly. You don't know how to let it go. Yeah, I've been there. I'm going to warn you though, not to hang on too long. Because in my experience, actually, what's really funny is I was at a holistic fair and I got a reading, and this woman would pull crystals and then she would tell you like what that crystal was like trying to help you with, or what that crystal wanted to tell you. And one of the crystals that she pulled for me that I carry around often is it's supposed to give me the courage to be able to let things go when they need to be let go. Because she's like, you tend to hang on to things for too long. And I literally like laughed out loud and I was like, no, that couldn't possibly be me. Obviously I was being fictitious. Yeah, that's very much a Morgan thing to do. I know I hang on to things too long. But she said, yeah, this will help you have the bravery to release what needs to be released. Because when you ignore that inner pull, when you override your knowing, your gut knowing just to stay connected to somebody, it really does start to eat you alive. You may become more resentful. You may become anxious or really unsure of yourself. You really do start editing your voice. And finally, you self-abandon yourself because that relationship is no longer fucking serving you. Bottom line, you might feel like, okay, maybe I don't have to like fully end it. Maybe I can just, keep it and like keep my distance and, only let them see one part of me. Yeah, okay, but what happens when you do that? You're completely abandoning yourself. You're completely telling yourself that like you can't show up in your full authenticity within that relationship. What? Like crazy. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't want our children to only show us one side of themselves, right? We can't be that way. And by the way, this can play in with any role that you currently play. This can come in with a job. This can come in like anything. But every moment that you engage where you're not fully being yourself, you're abandoning yourself. You're leaving that little perfect version of you in the fucking dust, and you're locking them in the corner and you're saying, listen, I love you, but they don't love you. So you got to stay over here because you're going to trigger them. You're going to be too much for them. And, I just am not brave enough to like cut this relationship off. And that's a lot of tough love. But like I'm saying that to myself too. It's intense. And here's the other thing is that eventually that relationship is going to blow up anyway. And that's like part of that crystal of what she was telling me is like you hang on for too long. Instead of ending it with like love and clarity and peace, it'll end with a fight, a betrayal, some messy drift where no one actually talks about what's happening, but you can both feel it. Yeah. So letting go late almost always hurts more than letting go early. I feel like we have all had these instances in our relationships where we've just kind of lovingly let go of a relationship before. I can think of a handful of relationships that I used to be really, really close with these people, and it's just kind of like we drifted apart, but it was lovingly, and we both have loving feelings towards each other, and it's amazing. So just know that a loving release can happen, but it does just have to happen early. So let's talk about why the fuck is it so hard for us to actually just leave relationships when they're being asked to leave? And I've had to really sit with myself because, as I just told you, I have a really hard time releasing things when it's time to release them. Man, I fucking hang on. I use my analogy in the Turning Point course of like hanging from a rope, and you look up and you can see that that rope is fraying. You can see that that rope is not going to hold you for much longer, but instead of just letting go of the rope and trusting, you just fucking grip tighter onto the rope and you watch it fray piece by piece by piece, and you put yourself through this torture watching this rope fray. And I feel like that's what can happen when we're being asked to make a change specifically, but also when we're being asked to let go of relationships, when we're being asked to fully step into our authentic selves and just fucking be us and put ourselves first. Because when you are looking at releasing a relationship that is just no longer serving you, it can feel really almost selfish, because you can be like, oh, but you know, they've always been my friend and they're this and they're that. But it's like, okay, hold on. I don't laugh with them anymore. I don't reach out to them in times of crisis. I don't, like, they literally do not serve me anymore. Maybe you don't feel emotionally safe with them. Maybe you don't feel like you can express yourself fully. Maybe you feel like your conversations are just like shallow and fucking boring. Whatever that specific problem is with that specific person and that specific relationship, it's because you aren't taking yourself seriously enough to say, like, this relationship is no longer serving me, because we've been taught that that's selfish. We've been taught that that's gross. A relationship shouldn't serve you, except for it should. And every single relationship in our life, including work and whatever else, all should serve us. And if it's not serving us, we should find something else. So why is it so hard to leave? I feel like it's especially hard for women. And I don't know, maybe I'm not being fair. Maybe that's not the truth, but I do just kind of feel like it's especially hard for women, because women have been taught to be the caregivers in their relationships. And I feel like the programming just really kind of runs a little bit deeper with women and relationships, because I feel like women have been taught that loyalty means staying even when it hurts. I feel like we've been taught that you don't just throw people away. We've been told we're being cold, and we feel like we owe them just because they were there for us that one time. And I just want to ask you something. Why is it that we're taught to being more committed to relationship longevity than to ourselves and to our personal evolution? Why are we teaching ourselves that? Why are we teaching our daughters that? Why are we teaching our sisters that? Why are we teaching people that basically no matter what, you stay? It's because we were raised to believe that choosing ourselves means that we're hurting other people. Choosing ourselves means that we're being selfish, that setting a boundary or being cold, all of that is being mean. We need to be welcoming. We need to be loving. And we've been taught most of all that walking away means that it's a betrayal and that you're doing somebody a disservice. But let's just squash those right now, because you're not meant to be loyal to versions of people that no longer exist. So while you may be loyal to this relationship because that one time they did something really amazing, and now it's like, now you guys are just kind of built-in best friends, it's like that person doesn't exist. Same way that version of you don't exist that way either anymore. And it's just okay to not be stuck and anchored to something that happened in the past, because you're not meant to die on the hill of like, but they were there for me that one time, or like they helped me get through a really hard time, or God forbid, I don't know if it's like a romantic relationship that you are being asked to leave, but like it's not even that you're meant to die on any hill. You're truly not meant to. The only hill that you're meant to stand up and die on is the one that is for you, the one that is fully, authentically you. And if you're feeling whispers of I'm being selfish or you're feeling guilty, maybe just listen to the last episode about how guilt is suffocating you and stopping your manifestations from coming in. I mean, how many of us are manifesting abundance and manifesting love? And sometimes what can happen is like the universe is just showing you that person isn't willing to go deeper. So now what, right? Now what the fuck does that mean? It's like, well, you have the information you need now. Now it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. So how the fuck do we release this relationship with love? How do we release it early? How do you let go of someone without hating them? Or without making them hate you, without turning it into a war? Well, this is the unfortunate truth, is we can't control what the other person feels like. But what I want you to understand is that if you do release them and they feel abandoned, that is a trigger for them to go in and heal. That is not you being selfish. That is not you being mean. That is not you hurting the other person. Because you've been triggered and you've gone in and you've done the work to heal it, correct? So now we can say, because we've been through it, that triggering somebody isn't mean, it's not on purpose, and fucking A, it might be the thing that you signed up to do when you came to Earth. It literally might be the thing that you signed on a dotted line. I will do this to this person to help them heal. So, number one, you have to let them go by telling yourself the truth first. Every relationship that I've let go recently, well, I'm going to be truthful, a lot of them have blown up, but the ones that I have let go with love, I've sat down and finally just told myself that this relationship is not serving me. It is not helping me grow. It is not making me happy. It's not making me feel safe. It's not making me feel loved. Any of those things. And you will never convince the other person. The other person doesn't speak the same language of you. It doesn't need to be some big dramatic scene where you sit down and you tell them that like they've made you feel X, Y, and Z and therefore you need to pull away. No, because that's kind of making them the villain, because ultimately, it's not because of them that you're pulling away, it's because of you. So sometimes the most sacred goodbye is a quiet one. Maybe you stop chasing, maybe you stop trying to explain, maybe you stop contorting, maybe you stop putting that mask on, maybe you stop playing small, maybe you stop laughing at the things that aren't funny anymore. You just step into your authenticity when you're around that person. You can release the relationship without releasing the love. You can still have love for them, but you have to be able to release the need to be understood and just truly get down to the fact and believe it in your core that every single connection, every single relationship is not meant to last forever. Some people are meant to be in your life through one chapter. Some people are meant to be in your life through half the book. Some people, yes, stay in your life through the entire book, but your life is a rotating, living, breathing thing of relationships. Some are going to come, some are going to go. I gotta say, there are a lot of mental spirals that I haven't talked necessarily about in this episode yet, and I do want to just talk about it because there are a lot of times where you're spiraling and you think that you're thinking too much into it, and maybe you're picking up on like a snide comment and you're trying to really wrap your mind around it and say like, Are they hurting me? It feels like they're hurting me. What's going on here? What is all of this? And I just want to help calm that spiral a little bit and say, you honor your feelings. Factually, it doesn't matter. And then once again, it's like, don't make them the villain. They're just living their own life. Maybe you've gotten more sensitive. Maybe they've always been this person and you just started to pick up on it. Maybe they are making snide comments and trying to hurt you, but that's okay. And we're just going to pull away because this relationship doesn't serve you anymore, and it ultimately has nothing to do with that other person. Now, the relationships that I let go with peace and love, it felt like a release. It felt like once I let that go, there was an expansion somewhere else. That felt really, 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 I did feel a little guilty, but of course we feel guilty because we've been taught that relationships must last forever and we must hang out forever. Now, the relationships that I didn't let go, those ones followed me for a long time because I was sitting in the messy grossness of it and I was trying to dissect everybody's actions and everybody's intentions and like what story are they telling people, because like I don't know how they could have made me out to be the bad person in this situation or whatever happened. So those ones took me a long time to actually truly energetically let it go, because I feel like when you have that messy bit in your life, your brain stays attached to that for so long. And it's like you can say, okay, I let it go. But you find yourself thinking about it. You find yourself rehashing it about it. You find yourself looking them up on social media and see if they're talking about it. You find yourself wanting to ask other people like, hey, is so-and-so talking about me? Yeah, I know. Trust me, I've been there. I've done all of that. But when you can release it with love, when you can truly boil it down and be like, no. I'm just doing what's best for me. And what's best for me is to release this. And I love them and I love everything that they've taught me, even though it might have fucking sucked, or even though it was really nasty and I actually didn't love it. It taught you something, right? So then we can just say like, okay, and now I'm releasing that because I made the decision to release that. Not because they broke up with me, not because I was forced to release it because they were fucking terrible, not because of any of those things. Like I made the decision to release this because it no longer serves me. And I know that by not having this relationship in my life, I will be able to move forward in a more authentic way. Because if you've heard me say, if you're manifesting something and you want something more in your life, you got a plate full of broccoli and all you want is green beans, you got to get rid of the broccoli, okay? So if you have a bunch of stagnant, stuck relationships that are no longer serving you and you want abundance, joy, happiness, love, excitement, whatever you're calling in, and by the way, you don't even have to be actively manifesting because we're manifesting every single day through everything that we do. So if you're moving towards that, which you are because you're doing the healing, it's like you got to clear some of that broccoli so that you can have what you actually want. And on top of that, every time you make a step towards listening to yourself and doing what's best for you, and you're like standing up for that version of you that you have been keeping locked in that bedroom for so long, every time you stand up for that authentic version of you and you're like, yes, come out and let your freak flag fly, you are building self-trust. And every time you build self-trust, you're building self-love. And bingo bongo, my friend, self-love is really where we all need to be. Okay, so what I will leave you with is, it's okay to be the one who grew. It's okay to be the one who left. It's okay to miss someone and still know that they don't belong in your next chapter. It's okay to still love someone and love every experience that you've had with them and still know that they don't belong in the next area of your life because that relationship is just no longer serving you. And finally, it's okay to feel that grief. It's okay to be sad. Let yourself be fucking sad. Or alternatively, let yourself feel the relief and the peace. Don't bottle up those emotions, because emotions are feelings in motion, and feelings have to be in motion or else they get stored in your body. You have to release it. So don't stuff it down. That's not where it belongs. You don't have to justify your growth. You don't have to justify why that relationship is no longer serving you. Your job is just to honor it. It's not because you're heartless, but it is because you love yourself and your authenticity above everything. So if you need help letting go, I got you. Just DM me. If you have a friend or a loved one who you know needs to let go of a relationship, send them this episode. Oh, yeah, it's scary and it's sad and it's a lot to let something go, but I promise something better is going to come in its place. All right, that's it for today's episode of Oops, I'm Evolving. Thanks for hanging out and diving into the messy, real shit with me. If you're loving the vibe, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and find me on socials to keep the conversation going. Remember, growth isn't always pretty, but damn, it's worth it. Catch you next time.